Well everybody, let's talk about motorbike showing whilst we ride up to Kirkham Abbey. Now let's start with licensing, shall we? Now I passed my test in 1984, so it was a question of pass my test, ride any bike I like. At the time though, I had a VIC-20 computer, right, and I decided, that's a Commodore VIC-20, I decided to sell it and use it to buy a motorbike. So I brought myself a C15, which a few years earlier would have been a learner bike, but they changed the laws to 125, so that wasn't a learner bike when I passed my test. But it needed restoring, so I took it into the garage, I stripped it down. Remember, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was learning about bikes, and I put the radio on, and Deep Purple, you know, Perfect Strangers came over the radio, because Deep Purple, the band I loved, and at the time they'd split up, and I hadn't really been paying attention, and they were getting back together. There was no internet to tell you these things, you know, you found out through radio stations and magazines. And I found out that they were getting back together, and their new album was playing over the radio. And I loved Deep Purple, and I thought I'd never get a chance to see them. And I was in the garage playing, you know, well, it's Friday. It was the Friday Rock Show with Tommy Vance. And I was playing the Friday Rock Show whilst restoring this bike. About this time of year, actually, it would have been quite cold in the garage and freezing. And I stripped it all down. I painted all the frame, the tank and everything, got certain things enamelled, and got it back on the road. I first kick-started it, and it created so much smoke. My neighbour thought the garage was on fire. Anyhow, at the time, I thought to myself, I love this bike, but the more I rode it, I remember I was a learner still. I just passed my test, and you're still a learner when you pass your test. You don't have time to gain experience. Anyhow, I was riding around with 1960s disc brakes, no indicators, and the police were seeing a young man on a classic British bike and thinking I'd stolen it, and they were always pulling me over. And at the time they were driving the brand new Ford Granadas, and they just pull up in front of me, you know, and do an emergency stop, and I'd have to swerve around them in order to avoid an accident, and point out to them that they'd just done an emergency stop in front of a classic British motorbike whose brakes are nowhere near as good as a brand new Ford Granada. And they'd just look at me, go, oh, yeah, okay, sorry, and then demand to see my licence. At one point, when one happened, there was two up, I'd given my friend a lift home from work, and an old lady at the side of the road went up to the police officer and said, "Can you leave our young men alone? They've done nothing wrong, you're just picking on them." But yeah, anyhow, that bike was something. It was solidly built, really solid. It leaks like a sieve, of course. I had to put thicker oil in it because it kept the oil in longer. But I used to love riding that, and I got my love of old brick bikes from basically coming home from school one day, and I was just turned into the street, and there was a BSA Gold Flash, I think it was, on the corner street, and I looked at it, I thought, that's a nice looking bike. And then I just walked away, and then I heard it start up, and I said, oh, the roar, I loved it, and I turned on and I saw it just speed off, you know, and I thought, oh, I've got to get me one of those. And I've always liked brick bikes ever since. I've always enjoyed them. So when you see like you go through a period where you're married and your wife thinks you motorbikes are selfish, that you can't have any and stuff like that without creating a divorce out of it, and you miss it for a while, and then you see all the brick companies disappear, and then Triumph comes back and Norton comes back, and then Royal Enfield's starting to appear on the streets again, because Royal Enfield never went away, right? You start thinking to yourself, this is a good time, this is the time I want to be back on my motorbike. So you start looking around, and there they are, the Royal Enfield Classic 350. I was actually just about to get another bike just before they stopped making the Bullet 500 and started making the Classic 350. And by the time I actually got myself a place I could park it safely, the Royal Enfield Meteor was out, and I thought, oh, I've got to get myself a Meteor. Says I love them bikes. They look really nice. Now, I chose it basically because I normally have two bikes, one for work and one for pleasure, and I wanted a bike that was good for work, right, easy to clean, but would also allow me to go places and do things. And the Royal Enfield Meteor seemed to fit that bill. It was one of those bikes which it hit the sweet spot just absolutely perfectly. So I got it from Robson's of Rochdale, I think it was. Robson's of Rotherham. No, yeah. Anyways, somewhere just near York. Anyway, anyway, they delivered it, and the day they delivered it, it was basically in the middle of a heat wave, and there was about 6 weeks where we had nothing but sun, and they dropped it off, and I said, "Is it registered?" Because it's a brand new bike. And they went, we'll do that now, right? Just give it an hour, right? So I gave it an hour, and then I rang back. Is it registered? Oh, we forgot. Give it another half an hour. So I give it another half an hour, right? Anyhow, then it was registered, and I got my keys, got my helmet, went outside, and it started raining, and it's been raining ever since. Well, that year it was. Friends of mine at work said to me, "Brian, get rid of that bike. It's jinxed." Says because every time I went anywhere it was pissing down. It was literally raining every time I went out on it. First pictures I've got of me and me getting soaked. I mean, just a couple of hours earlier it would have been bright sunshine. But yeah, that's just the way it was. But anyway, I've seen videos of the catalytic converter underneath. I think it is rusting away to nothing that some people have on the Royal Enfield Meteors. But mine seems to be fine. It's been through a lot of rain, a hell of a lot of rain, a lot of salt on the road in winter when I rode it all the way through winter as well. But when I wash my bike, I always wash the catalytic converter as well. I've got a brush, I give it a good scrub, so it stops it rusting. You don't leave that kind of thing on it for too long. Don't leave it all the way through winter without wash, for instance. Give it a wash once a month or once every 2 months at least, and it'll be fine, it'll work great. It does tend to suffer a little bit though. It suffers a little bit from basically bad weather. So I find you do have to grease up the bike and oil it down for winter to prepare it in order to keep it in good condition. By the time you do get to spring again, it'll still look tatty because the salt will take its toll, but that will all wash off and polish up and it'll be fine. So yeah, I think it's proven to be a very reliable bike, even though early on it was a little bit clunky. As I said in previous videos, the gears weren't quite smooth and that lot. Now I've got to 7,500 miles, it's alright, it's all running quite well. I'm quite pleased with it. The only thing I'm not pleased with is the way the wheel alignment works, because the Royal Enfield haven't really done a good job on that. Yeah, this is Kirkham Abbey, and it's the first time I've used the selfie stick with the camera, so I'm hoping the sound will come out alright because I can't find the microphone. Anyway, yeah, Kirkham Abbey. Visitors centre is closed, so it looks like they're not charging to come in today. So the toilets, unfortunately, so if you're off season you might find it difficult to go. During the summer though, this is a very, very nice place to visit. Facilities wise, there isn't much here. It tends to be just that village in the distance. I think there's a pub there, and toilets and stuff in that building there. But the abbey itself is in a valley overlooking a stream and a bit of a weir, which is the noise you can hear in the background, and it is very picturesque indeed. Really nice. I did actually get a handout sheet for this when I first came here, explaining who built it, why, how long it had been here. I had to dig it out. But if you like abbeys and you like visiting ruins and stuff, this is definitely a place to be. Good thing about these cameras is I can pan this around later and I'll show you a proper view of it all. You can see how thick these walls are, look. What I'm actually taking you to is what I think is a drain. It's just over here somewhere. Comes out of that bit there, down there towards the river. Then I'll take them to the main building once I'm down there. It's a shame, but people would scavenge from these ruins to build local buildings. So some of the buildings you see around here were probably built from the stone from this abbey. There it is. Give you a view of it. See? Don't know where it goes. Separate, I know where it ends up all the way down there. This is October time, so it's probably why it's all shut down. There's another one. Don't know what that is. You can see there, look. A lot of storms by the looks of it. A few of them trees were up the last time I came down here. Another one there, look. Any ideas what they are, post them below. I like the tree. See that big tree there? I think it might be an oak, not too sure. I love seeing these old trees. Bit of nature never did anybody anyhow. Unless you've got hay fever like I get. Tree pollen's the worst for me. Look at that one. You're going to see why I came here now. Not up here, it's just down there. Normally I'd come in great big work boots. Great for all terrain, yeah. But I'm wearing bike boots today, which are really bad for anything slippy and muddy. So there's a tip for you. If you go into these places, bring your boots. Now this is, you can't get up here. You can so far, but you can't go all the way up because it's blocks off. But let's have a look. See? I guess the stairs would have gone all the way up. See, and there's a little porthole thing where you can look out of. Yeah, you see? It's handy having a selfie stick, I tell you. Right, let's get out of there. Go and take a seat near the river. Get something to drink. And decide what I'm going to do next. There are ruins all over the North Yorkshire Moors. This is just one of them that's fairly close to me. Yeah, about 50-60 miles. Didn't want to go too far in October. Not when I'm testing this out for the first time. Properly, that is. There we go, there's the river and there's the bridge. Looks fantastic, I'm sure you'll agree. But here's a little tip thing for you for World War II. There we go. I usually come from that direction there, past the over the bridge, past the railway. Right. When I first came, it was my Royal Enfield app on, and it kept losing connection. It took me to the strangest of places. Ugh. Don't know if you've noticed, but we had a few suicide pheasants on the way here. Just leaping out on the road or not getting out of the way. One of them stopped in the road right in front of me. You might have picked it up on the recording, and just stood there. So I drove off, left it in peace, and when I looked in the rear view mirror, it was chasing me. You can imagine that. Anyhow, I believe some of them houses in the distance there are actually made from the stone from here. I believe. I read it somewhere, I can't remember where. But this is a really picturesque spot, especially in the summer. I've got some fantastic photos from this area. I might show you from a few years back. But yeah, really nice. This is what it's all about.